Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, upvote, comment, all of that stuff would be appreciated. Also, we're available, like I said, of wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. You don't have to say anything nice about us. Just give us a 5-star review if you don't mind. We'd appreciate that very much. Pratt Rogers is here for his weekly segment on Ole Miss recruiting, and it was a commitapalooza this weekend. Akello Stone, Patrick Broomfield. It was a good weekend for Ole Miss football.
Hey, Steven. Man, no doubt. Super good vibes from the weekend, especially feel like we needed it after that baseball series beatdown. So, very encouraging weekend for sure on the recruiting front.
Wait, baseball season's still happening? What's going on?
Yeah, I know. I try to block it out too.
So, Akello Stone, a defensive lineman from Georgia Tech, and I've seen this go multiple ways. And that is, hey, this is a depth piece for Ole Miss. This is something very encouraging. He's the defensive lineman award winner for spring practice at Georgia Tech. The other one is, oh, he's just a 3-star. Why are we even talking about him? Why are we going after somebody that's just a 3-star? And that line of thinking actually, honestly, makes me a little bit upset because this is the way I see it, Pratt. When Tywone Malone left, he was judged based off of potential. He still had potential. Everybody was upset that Tywone Malone was gone because if you look at his stats, you would not have been. But if a player's coming in, it's got to be all execution. There's no potential take in there. So basically in every transfer situation, one-for-one situation, you're going to have a group of people that are upset and they get bias and confirmation whenever they choose to do it. And you're going to have people that are excited and they're going to get confirmation to their bias in that. So what is your take on Akello Stone? I'm actually pretty excited because he's somebody that I view is going to compete with Jamon Gordon for time.
If you're looking at Akello Stone as I'm upset because he's a 3-star, then you clearly don't know the status of our defensive line right now, Steven. Look, I get that mentality when you're a Bama, when you're a Georgia, when you've got the playmakers who would be playing in front of him. Quite frankly, we don't. We just need a body. We need big bodies, and we need somebody who's played a lot of football in the transfer portal to get in there and play defensive line for this team. It's not a secret. This is not rocket science. This is, hey, look, he may be a 3-star. He may have potential. Quite frankly, Steven, I don't think a lot of people know a lot about this guy, considering his 2022 stats were 12 tackles, 1 sack all year, not a lot of playing time. But what you could say off potential is that, since he came out of high school, he's put on 40 pounds of muscle. He's 6'2", 280 now. And you sit there and say, that's a big body at D-line, and quite frankly, we need that. He's a sharp kid. If he's going to Georgia Tech, he's majored in building construction, kind of with an engineering emphasis, I think, and facility management. I'm too dumb to even know what all that entails, Steven. So, I think this is an asset to the program. Why would you look at this as anything other than an asset to the program?
Yeah, and you look at it, and I subscribe to PFF and their advanced stats, so you could see his snap counts and things like that. He had roughly 30 snaps a game playing on the defensive line. He played quite a bit. He didn't have many tackles, which tells you he's a plugger. He's a guy that spilled players to the outside. They didn't necessarily come towards him. And his numbers might not be exactly what you expect, but for somebody that's competing with Jamon Gordon, that's fine because J.J. Pegues is going to be the starter. You need somebody to spell J.J. Pegues. And if you look at other players on the defensive line, Stephon Wynn, I think that's his name. The transfer from Nebraska is between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And Isaac Ukwu is between Ole Miss and Missouri. So you have a chance to have, honestly, over a 2 deep at defensive line at the end of all this. Now, they might not come to Ole Miss, but you know what I mean. So we could be in fairly decent shape to where we can kind of concentrate on the defensive backfield. because we might be pretty set on the front seven when all the smoke clears on this.
Well, look, Stephen, I think you could look at this as, the classic NIL dilemma of, hey, would we rather have, 6 or 7 really good to average, defensive players? Can we afford to pay 6 average guys, the NIL cost, whatever the market may be for that? Or do you want to go ball out and go pay a lot of money for one guy who may or may not really fill that defensive line position for you? So, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Yes, we've got a good body. He's probably a good depth piece. He's a kind of like you described, a run plugger. And, he's a sharp kid, clearly. I'm for it. So I think we need to tackle the defensive line, no pun intended, by a kind of a attack by committee almost. I just think that you can never have too many offensive or defensive linemen in the SEC, and I'm for getting as many as we possibly can at this point and figuring out who's good in the middle of the season, if that's what it takes.
And if you look at the front line of our defense, just the ones across the thing, we're in good shape. Cedric Johnson, really good player. J.J. McGee's really good player. Joshua Harris, former 4-star. Xavion Harris, a 4-star nose guard. Just mountains of men. Jared Ivey, pretty good player. We're probably top end set. So Ole Miss needs depth. Go find 3 or 4 guys just to put behind there and give people for Jamon Gordon to compete with. Replace a J.J. Hawkins, who honestly, I'm just going to be real here, nobody had really heard of before this spring. So,
it's funny you mentioned kind of the double-edged sword of looking at somebody's potential versus stats versus 3-star. Everybody's upset that he gets in the portal and is going, I think, to Colorado, correct? Is Hawkins going to Colorado, right? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, why would he leave? And then all of a sudden you're like, going back to your point immediately, nobody knew who that guy was until he's gone. Now everybody's upset about it, So college football fandom is weird, and you're always pulling for your team. You're not a Benedict Arnold if you go to Colorado. You're not a traitor. But anyway, so going back to Kalo Stone, I'm excited about it, and we need as many bodies as we can get.
Speaking of which, he wasn't the only commitment that Ole Miss football got over the weekend. Patrick Broomfield, a 6'2" cornerback from Clarksdale, Mississippi, which I do believe is the same high school that Tremaine McBride went to. I could be wrong on that one, but I think Tremaine's from there as well. Committed to Ole Miss. Cornerback. Now, if you look at his huddle film, the first thing you notice is how bad the quarterback play is. So there's a chance. My point is Patrick Broomfield could be a better cornerback if the quarterbacks he was playing against was better. I am serious about that. Because I saw some floated ducks that had no business being thrown on his film, and if it was anywhere near the wide receiver, he would be better off, I think.
well, that's an encouraging way to look at it, I guess, Stephen. But he plays receiver too. He in his spring game, the senior spring game, I guess probably a week or two ago, whenever it was for him. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception, 6'2", like you mentioned, $165, something like that. So he's got to put on some more weight for sure. He had good offers, though. This would probably be a similar style prospect to Kalo Stone, of 3-star guy, but had good offer sheet of LSU, Oregon, Mississippi State, and I think State was probably his number 2 choice. When you have an offer sheet like that, you're usually kind of an SEC guy, regardless of what your stars say. He's clearly a versatile athlete. He played varsity basketball in high school too. And you know what? This may not be super kosher to say, but he's great friends with J.J. Harrell, Kamarion Franklin, and Braylon Burnside. So at the least, he's recruiting Ole Miss for those guys, which I think is huge in itself.
You know what's kind of funny that you mentioned that? There's 2 distinct cliques in recruiting in the 2024 class, and they might not call it that, but it just seems the way it is. The first one that I noticed was the Chris Davis, Jamonte Waller The commit out of Pascagoula, I forgot his name.
Jeffrey Rush, maybe?
Jeffrey Rush, yes. And Noreel White. That group of four really tight where you get all kinds of vibes that they're going to eventually end up together. They might go to visit to different places, but when it comes time to sign, you just get an idea that they might end up together. North Mississippi has the same thing. J.J. Harrell, Patrick Broomfield, Braylon Burnside. That group, Kamari and Franklin, that it's interesting to see these cliques on different sides of the state, and it'll be interesting to see what that happens. Franklin's obviously having fun right now on Twitter, just putting himself in uniforms. It's like, hey, everybody, what do you think? To whichever fan base it is. So that and Waller. Okay, I will say this before people freak out. Steve Wiltfong said that Penn State was the leader for Jamonte Waller.
Yep, saw that article.
Yeah, it is May. And official visits are unlimited now. They're not limited to 5. So if he goes on 4 visits in June, he could take 7 more in the fall. Nobody freak out about this yet. It's
too late. Everybody's freaking out already.
Yeah, it's not there. That's just not the way that recruiting is going to work on this one. And once he goes up to Happy Valley, everybody's talking about that. You want to talk about a place that's like Starkville, except more in the middle of nowhere? That's Happy Valley. So just everybody simmer down, let the season start. Waller, we're in good shape on him. Chris Davis is in his ear every day in school, a commitment for Ole Miss. Take a deep breath. We'll be fine.
You know, it's funny you say that because a lot of these Mississippi kids, I feel like it's a very strong theme year over year. 1 or 2 of the top guys always really get an affinity for going out of state. Just doesn't matter how hard Ole Miss or Mississippi State recruits them, or even the nearby states like LSU or Bama. They're just dead set, I'm getting out of Dodge. And, you know, that was probably last year's Dante Dowdell. Oregon, went to Oregon, play running back. You know, that may be his case this year for Jamonte Waller, but nobody knows that right now because we're so early in this recruiting process. I don't think. So Anyway, I just know our coaches have done a great job, and Pete Golding's on him every single day. So I'm just not super concerned about that. I know we're getting a lot of good feedback from him.
Yeah, just remember, official visits are unlimited now. He is about to have the best summer vacation of his life. Every weekend, he's going to get all expense paid where he's wined and dined. You would be crazy not to take a school up on that.
Yep, it would not suck. Yeah, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be all right. And remember, you know, like you said, there's players every year that getting out of state they just want to do that. But that works the other way too. Damon Williams is committed into this class and recruiting his tail off. He's come back multiple times. So it does work both ways on that one, and is probably working to Ole Miss's advantage. I really like Damon Williams.
Man, is he a cheerleader for the program. I mean, I'm super excited about him.
Yeah, what do you think the next commit will be? Who just spitballing? Who do you think will be next? Not transfer portal, high school.
Not transfer portal. You know, I feel like J.J. Harrell or Noreel White have been on flip watch for forever. I mean, I would probably pick one of those 2 guys. I see maybe Cameron Beavers next in line. Those are probably. I think it's going to be a Mississippi kid. I think one of those kids clicks here soon and gets in the commit column. I feel like we're starting to make a lot of traction in the state in a really heavy way.
Yes, and for those that don't know, they've released the dates of the summer camps in Oxford, Mississippi. And in camp season, there's always commits. That 2019 Mississippi-made class that everybody makes fun of.
Yes.
That got us to a Sugar Bowl. There was all kinds of commitments that were over the weekend of the camps going on. So somebody, I think. Somebody that's a 3-star in Mississippi is probably going to be the next commit that rings the bell for Ole Miss. I'd like to see Caleb Odom.
Oh, great one. I completely forgot about Odom. Yeah, he's definitely hot and heavy. I think Ole Miss is in the lead for him. I know he put out a recent top 10 list, and the coaching staff felt like that they were in the driver's seat for sure. That's a good one too. Man, that would be a big one. I would love to see that name pop up on the commit column here soon.
Yeah, when I talked to Damon Williams, he mentioned that he was recruiting him. He also said that he was planning on coming to the Elite 11, which he did, and then coming back for his official visit the weekend of the LSU game. And now I think he's mentioned about coming back again another time. So, I mean,
is this Odom?
This is Williams, but Williams coming
Williams.
back.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the trips like that. Him and Odom, who met on Instagram of all places, just friends DMing on Instagram. That's how they got together. But they've gotten extremely close. So the more that Damon Williams comes to town, I think the more that Caleb Odom is going to try and reciprocate. So we might have an opportunity to have him in town as well. We need to pay attention to when his official visit will be, because I'm imagining it's going to be that LSU weekend, and I think that Ole Miss is going to blow out that LSU weekend.
That's funny to hear meeting via Instagram. Most of these guys, I feel like, meet at camp circuits or even AAU basketball, whatever it may be. They know the guys who are great athletes in their area, or even across the state or the national camps, even across the nation. I don't know that I've ever really heard of two prospects becoming friends through Instagram first without being like at an Ole Miss camp or something and striking up a friendship. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's an Arizona and Georgia thing. They're really far apart. So even in the camp circuit, the odds of them running across each other was not good. So
sure.
Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show, we will continue to drill down on Ole Miss football. We're going to talk about, Trey Harris. We'll have him. And we're going to look at names that I have not pounded into the dirt over the last 3 months. So I'm going to try and get creative with some subject matter and topics, and then also talk about Jackson Dart not throwing the ball over the middle, which I always do. So we'll do that. Pratt, thank you very much for stopping by tonight. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
See you, buddy. Bye.
All right, man. Bye.